Welcome to Bonehead. This week I'm so excited because we have our first prop maker on the show. Do you like Star Trek? Do you like Lord of the Rings? Do you like Justified? He's worked on all of these movies and many more, and we've got so many great stories from him. We interviewed him just a few weeks ago, and here it is. Roll. Michael W. Moore. Not to be confused with the Michael Moore everyone hates. This one's beloved. Watch. Today, welcome to Bonehead. We have prop maker Michael W. Moore. I'm Joe Lewis.
I'm Chad.
I'm James Thomas.
Nice to meet you, sir.
Nice to meet you.
Okay, go ahead.
No, so I guess just again, thank you for doing the show. But you have a career that
I just like the way you start. Sorry.
well, you usually start it.
I know. As opposed to those who don't have a career. No, I'm just messing
your
with
career,
you.
your career in Hollywood spans decades. So I guess the big thing how did you start as a prop maker? Because it's such an interesting field to get into in terms of cinema.
Well, I actually started off in makeup.
Oh, really?
Yes, because one of my first official films was Reanimator.
Yeah.
Which I was doing makeup on.
Okay.
So I was, how do I put this? Okay, in high school, I was one of the kids of, horror makeup, great, love it. Horror movies. We ended up getting thrown out of Dawn of the Dead.
All right, so let's just stop you there.
They thought we were too young to see the movie.
How old were you?
18.
Okay.
And they said, no, you're too young. You can't be. It's like, you want to see my ID? And then the manager goes, are you arguing? Get out.
Where did you grow up, sir?
Well, I was born in Virginia.
We're in Virginia.
Richmond, Virginia.
Okay.
Okay.
But at the ripe old age of 2, my parents moved to California. And I've basically been here ever since, in Los Angeles.
So how did you start? So you were into horror movies, right? You're into horror makeup. So I'm assuming you were geeky like us.
Oh yeah, one of my friends was my I don't know how to put that in. One of my friends, we were really into it, so we would practice making things. Like, my first piece I ever made was a severed thumb, which scared the crap out of everybody in the neighborhood. Because when you have a fake thumb and you've made up your thumb look like it's all bloody and you've taken it off. People get upset about that, and then they call the fire department. And they come out and go, "Why are we here? I don't know." One of my friends, his name is Jeff Farley.
Mm-hmm.
He's currently a makeup artist. He does a lot of horror movies. He kept going in that direction. Right after Reanimator, I started working on at John Buechler's shop, working on Troll.
Uh-huh.
And there was some other movie we were working on at exactly the same time, because it was all the same characters anyway, we painted.
You're right.
Troll and Ghoulies, that's the one.
Yes, Ghoulies.
Ghoulies.
Okay, so I worked, and I was working for John Buechler while I was doing Reanimator. That was on-set makeup. What's funny is, I was working at Toys R Us when I got a phone call. They called my name up in the up at Toys R Us to but I had an important phone call. I needed to come to the front desk.
Yeah.
So I go all the way to the front desk, and my friend has called me up and goes, "Hey, Mike, yeah, we need an on-set makeup guy on the set tomorrow. You want the job?" And I went, "Is it for money?"
Yeah.
I used to do a lot of, fan movies and stuff like that as well. And so he goes, "Oh yeah, actually it's paying pretty good." I said, "Okay." So I walked up over to the manager's desk and go, I'm going to either have to be out tomorrow for another job, or he goes, no, if you're not going to be here tomorrow, then you might as well just not come in. I said, "Oh, so you're firing me or laying me off?"
Yeah.
"We're firing you." I said, "Okay, I want my check now." And, so I went on set. We worked for 18 hours straight shooting.
Yeah.
On that. And then I went to John Beekler's shop, to work on Troll and so on. And that worked out. And I said, I like the lab work better than I like working with people. So, and then I was working, after that, I ended up going into aerospace, actually, of all things.
Really?
I got called in by my brother at the time to work at an aerospace company as a temp to install telephones, which I was like, fine, that's easy. And then suddenly I was thrust into making valves and stuff like that for the space shuttle and what have you.
Wow.
And then we were working there I was working at that shop when everybody was watching the space shuttle take off.
Uh-huh.
And we all went back to our desks to continue working when we heard everybody screaming in the front office.
Oh, I know where this is going. Yeah.
So the space shuttle exploded and so on. So I was like, okay, yeah, because I was one of the people who there's a small environmental valve that is directly connected to their suits.
Uh-huh.
And that was, so I had a direct connection there. And I was like, I don't know. 3 weeks later, I got laid off, which was fine. Because I was like, okay, that's a little too much responsibility, in my view, to,
Right.
to be, things that people are depending on. So I ended up going, sure, no problem. I'm not going to fight you on anything. That's fine. And then I got a call from another friend who basically said, hey, we're crewing up for Masters of the Universe.
Canon Films.
Canon Films, Golden Globus.
And by this time, I had, I had already been to, my school, my college is in plastic technology.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So I already had a vacuum former, and I had already, I knew how to do casting, molding, blah, 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 blah already. Because working in makeup labs and stuff like that, you kind of know how to do that stuff. So I went to work for, I can't remember his name, Bob Short.
Okay.
Who did Splash.
Yeah.
With Mermaid Tale. So we were doing Masters of the Universe, but what's funny is that Masters of the Universe was all the design work and everything was being done by Landmark Entertainment, which is Gary Goddard, who ended up being the director of Masters of the Universe. Well, 6 months previous to this, my friend that called me and I had already been doing a bid to make all of the Skeletor armor suits, all the bad guys in blue and black. So we already knew everything about the costumes, how they were supposed to look, how they're supposed to be, but we didn't get the bid on it.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't win the bid. So I ended up getting the call. I said, sure, I'll come down and do that. They were already about halfway done with all of that. So we were working on that. I was doing some vacuum forming with my own machine and stuff. Let's see, what else did we do? Now, during that time, I think it was during Master Universe, we ended up doing a movie called Munchies.
Yep.
Munchies. Mm-hmm.
Now, and before I go any further, let me run really fast.
He's going to pull out a munchie.
If he pulls out a munchie, I'm going to freak. To our listeners and viewers, if a munchie comes on here, you're getting ready to see me.
If you're listening to iTunes, he is now pulling out a...
It's a munchie! Oh my god, it's a munchie.
That is cool.
Well, it's a Munchie head.
Still,
Thank you.
when I gave you episodes to listen to, I've actually brought up munchies in a previous episode, sir.
So, do you mind if I pause right there? And I think I misheard you. So, when you graduated high school, did you go to college? That was what I didn't hear.
I was going to college while I was working in aerospace.
Okay.
Getting my certificates in plastics.
Right. Okay.
I did a little bit of college right after high school, and that was for video technology, like doing this.
Right. Yeah.
I don't like that either. Too much for at that point there was too much math involved.
Right.
And it was unnecessary because nobody cared.
So, which Reanimator sequence did you work on? Did you work on the famous head doing head or scene?
Okay. A lot of the really the scene. Well, we shot multiple scenes that day,
Right.
which were agonizingly long. But basically, yes, we did the head and the crotch.
Yeah.
We did the See, it's been a long time since I've even seen the movie, but you're in the morgue, and there's all the dead bodies that are coming to life. There's the black guy with his special apparatus to cover his junk.
Yeah.
I forgot what we called them at that point. But we had a large lady, an old man, and a couple of others. When they were shooting the scene where whatever her name is, the actress,
Barbara Crampton.
there you go.
I was hoping you would tell me a Barbara Crampton story.
When we were shooting that scene, okay, first of all, there were 3 makeup crews working that movie.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them were doing this, this section of it, this section, so on. So everybody's already seen everybody naked.
Right.
Because everybody was naked.
Right.
Even before we put their little mustache covers and stuff on them.
Yeah.
What else are you going to do? It's a beard. Yeah, well.
Yeah, right.
Beards now. But basically, she insisted that all non-essential crew leave the set.
I can't say I blame her. Yeah.
Okay, well, in reality, okay, so that means all the extras are there,
Right.
okay, or, I don't know, were they in that scene?
No, there's no extras in that. It's just her and the doctor, I think.
Doctor's head, yeah.
Doctor's head.
And, 35 guys.
Right.
crew, who are the ones who need to stay because they're taking care of the lights, the stakes, the da-da-da-da-da, and all this other, So it's like, okay, well, all the rest of the crew have to leave. Well, the rest of the crew are the ones who put her makeup on while she was naked.
Right.
It didn't quite make sense to me, but I was like, whatever, I don't have to be on set right now, let's go.
Which is the time I would have wanted to be on set. I'm just saying, but keep going, yeah.
But it was just, that type of, it's like, it's odd that you're asking all of us to leave who've already seen everything. I've seen more stuff than I care to. That was one of the closing doors on my, I don't really want to necessarily do this, I think. The blood and gore is fine, but I don't need to know that all 16 of these extras, what they look like below their makeup.
Right.
Yeah.
Male or female.
Yeah.
Large variety. There it is.
So, okay, so you got your first break into prop making through Masters of the Universe and Munchies, and is that where your love?
See, first of all, my father's a Teamster.
Yeah.
Or was a Teamster. At Universal Studios.
Oh.
And that's what he wanted me to do, is be a Teamster, a driver.
Yeah.
And I'm like, Dad, I can't sit behind the wheel of a car and drive people around all day. I'll fall asleep and kill everybody. But now if I had done that, I'd be wealthy right now because they make a lot of money if you're constantly working. But I also worked with a bunch of different people here and there during high school to Reanimator in there, that block. I worked at an optical house called CPC, and they did the Pillsbury Doughboy commercials. They're also the company that originated the Pappy Parker fried chicken commercials way back in the 60s and 70s and 80s, as well as a bunch of different things, like one of the first commercials that was done with the toilet puppet bearer thing. I forgot what his name is. He advertises toilet paper.
Snuggle.
It's
Snuggles. Oh yeah, okay.
Snuggles, right? Snuggles.
Yeah, Snuggles.
Okay, so that's in some cases that's where I would meet different people that pointed these little tiny jobs over a weekend. That's where I had worked with Tom Sherman. Tom Sherman was the one person who knew everything about 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, the models and so on. That was his favorite film. He passed away quite a while ago. But that's where I ended up doing some rigging for having carnation condensed milk fly through the air. What else? At that point, they were doing History of the World Part 1.
By the way, if you could see on the other side of the wall is an original one sheet directly behind of History of the World Part 1. Or half sheet, yeah.
Well, at the ending sequence, if you recall, is Jews in Space.
Oh, yes. Jews in Space, yeah.
Okay, so the person I was helping at the time in with this optical printer, I was the only one who didn't require glasses. Because they had been doing all this stuff for so long, too many bright lights and so on. So I had to help them align the four heads of the optical printer so they could combine the star fields, the ships, and so on for that scene.
Wow.
And that actually was kind of fun because it was like, okay, that you wouldn't believe. It's like, oh, how far off is it? well, to my eye, in this viewfinder, it's off by a 16th of an inch. And all of a sudden, you put your eye out of the thing and watch the guy come up with a mallet and go, whack. Not quite yet. Whack. And that's how you adjusted everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you loosen it up a little bit more and that's perfect. Okay. So, as far as optical printing and so on, that was my first going into helping use an optical printer.
Okay.
So, like I said, I've done a lot of different kinds of things throughout history. At one point, with the same company, I was involved with building and being the expert on model ships for one of the Universal Studios tours out here, where they had Flash Gordon's ship that would fly around the thing and go down.
Mm-hmm.
But they had the Buck Rogers Draconia ship, the big one.
Yeah.
And then the fighter ships and stuff. And they were having to recreate those because Heartland didn't have those ships available to loan anybody for that. So I had to give them the specifications on how big those miniatures were. And then go in and help wire all the electrical panels. Because, on Buck Rogers, they always had those computers sitting next to the starfighters with all the lights just blinking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had to put all those lights in that for the tour. So, like I said, I've done a whole lot of different stuff, but leading up to working in more into props. But working at Bob Short's, for instance. At Bob Short's, we did Munchies there. We did Beetlejuice, Masters of the Universe, not in that order.
Yeah.
We did. There's a couple other shows that we were doing all at the same time. It was kind of a mishmash mix of everything. We also did Captain Power, the TV show.
I'm not familiar with Captain Power.
You'll have to look at it. It was ahead of its time.
Yeah, I was gonna say it was one of the first interactive with your TV type games. Yeah. Like it was a game and a show, and you had the viewer and all that stuff. Yes.
You had the ship, and you could actually fire at the screen and get points for shooting the robots in the chest and stuff.
Okay, yeah, I remember that now.
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So at Bob Short's, we built the prototype suits, which once again was another one of those things that my friend and I bid on and lost, and then it went to the guy who designed for the Ice Capades, or did design for the Ice Capades, and he was making everything out of gold lame and silver lame. When Gary Goddard found out that what he was doing and went, "Whoa, stop!" So it was all pretty special stuff. And then it went to Bob Short's, and Bob Short found out that me and my friend had originally done a huge bid on the whole show, which we didn't receive, but we were put in charge of that project at Bob Short's for a while to do the prototype suits. Then from the prototypes, we went into making the actual suits for the series, which I went to Canada for 2 weeks before I escaped, because it was, they didn't need me there after I fixed everything. But during that entire period, we were doing, when you're in a shop situation, whether you're doing makeup or whatever, you kind of end up having to do other things. Like on Beetlejuice, I was kind of, helping to do castings and stuff like that. And then I ended up actually making the radio-controlled head mechanism for the Flatman on Beetlejuice.
Oh, wow.
He's the one who has, the messenger, and then he goes down the slot.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So I made all the radio control mechanism for that. I also did his whole body, sculpted all that out and clothed it, and they made me take off 80% of the blood that was on it because they didn't want it too bloody.
Yeah, because there's not a whole lot of blood in Beetlejuice.
No, and it was kind of weird to us. Even the football players that kept coming in to see the lady there were gross, but they weren't dripping or anything else.
I just never even thought about it till just now that as many times as I've seen it, there really just is not a whole lot of blood.
No.
Even with those football players, I mean, there's a little bit, but it's mostly the makeup.
Yeah.
Huh.
And and that was a fun show. We were on me and a couple of other guys were on set besides the main makeup artist.
Was it V. Neil? Was it V. Neil, right?
But she was Beetlejuice.
Right.
We were doing the Bob Short company was doing the Maitland's makeups, old age makeups, and so on as they were deteriorating. We did the scareheads, where he had his hand and
right
like that. I did all the eyeballs on his hands.
Which for me personally, this is what made the movie for me. This is what hooked me into the movie. So, not Beetlejuice himself.
I really loved. The whole thought of it. I actually really loved the thought of the movie.
Oh yeah, no, there just wasn't anything like that around at the time. Still hasn't been.
No, not really. And at one point, the art director came in with a bunch of drawings and stuff, and we're like, "This is odd. These are strange." And what it was is Tim Burton actually was doing sketches.
Yeah.
Of the things like, we made the carousel hat.
Oh.
And that was made. And I'm trying to remember his name. I'll probably remember it shortly. But myself and Max Cervantes made this, and we had to be on set with it. And they broke it, which is amazing because it had steel gears in it, but it still broke it. And we had to keep going back and repairing it overnight for the next morning shoot.
Mm-hmm.
After we got up at like 11 o'clock at night, go to the shop, repair it, be back on set at 5. So in many cases we slept in the car.
Right.
We also did, let's see, what else? There was so many things. We did originally when Beetlejuice comes out of the coffin.
Yeah.
There was supposed to be a ghoul-like thing that come up and his arms flipped out. The kind of, it was weird.
Yeah.
And then we built it, and it was built in miniature, and then it was built as a full-size piece, which I did the remote control stuff for that as well. And then they decided, no, we're not going to do that. We're just going to have Michael Keaton fly out of it. I'm like, whatever, okay, it's your money, not ours. What else did we do? Because there was there was a lot of stuff that was like doing the snake on the hand railing, and then the snake that twirls around, and then the headless Maitland going up the stairs.
Yeah.
I made that as well.
Oh wow.
And that actually had full arm things that you controlled from below. But that actually was a fun show because we actually had a pretty good team together at that point for that. So every show has its thing that's really cool, and the other ones are like, yeah, that was fun.
I'll always ask. We always ask because, like we've said, we like talking to production people. I usually ask your least favorite and favorite director to work with. So I kind of like to ask you that question, and also maybe ask the worst show and the best show you worked on.
You know, it's what's interesting is when I look at my IMDb page and I look at it and go, oh, yeah, that's not even half of everything.
Right.
Yeah.
But then you go through the TV shows and so on.
Right.
So like on Star Trek, there were hundreds of directors.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Different shows. I mean, once again, there's just so much stuff. I think one of my favorite films to work on was, and believe it or not, was the Hobbit trilogy.
Yeah, I could see that.
Well, because there's a couple reasons. One, I was working for my friend Richard Taylor at Weta.
Uh-huh.
And I wasn't in charge. I was just a guy there to work on some stuff,
Mm-hmm.
And so my stress level was at like probably 2.
Yeah.
Whereas on other things here at my own shop, it's like, okay, we're at about 80 today.
Right.
As far as directors that I had a problem with.
I was just curious. You don't have to answer it if you don't want to.
Once again, there are so many different shows. I think it was a commercial I worked on.
Yeah.
Where they kept coming in and telling us that they kept wanting something smaller and smaller and smaller. And you're like, oh, okay, but we have to remake it every time you tell us to do this.
Right.
And, okay, sure, it's your money.
Yeah.
In many cases, oh, no, we don't want to pay any more money. We just want it the way we want it. It's like, well, no, we already delivered.
Right.
It was probably one of the commercials, only because of they were trying to be too specific on what they wanted, and it didn't matter.
Right.
Well,
yeah, go ahead.
no, I was just going to say, so, I mean, like, your career, you have worked on, not just in my opinion, but the world's opinion, on many classic films. I mean, you've worked on both Gremlins, you've worked on Back to the Future, you've worked on Star Trek. I mean, you've worked on every single Star Trek from Next Generation to the J.J. Abrams directed movies.
I've worked on about halfway through the first season of Next Generation.
Right.
All the rest of the way through, though.
Let's start with that. Like, how do you start on Star Trek and then just continue to keep working on it?
Well, once again, it's okay. To be honest, I've always had a portfolio. I have never shown my portfolio to get a job.
That's pretty impressive.
Connections.
I have basically been like, oh, hey, who was that guy? Or blah, 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 that type of thing. I've had to show my portfolio after I've gotten the job. At one point, we were working on some stuff for Disneyland for Star Tours, and they're like, do you have a portfolio? I said, yeah, do you really need to see it after 2 weeks of working? And he said, I just like to see it because, I usually look at everybody's portfolios before I hire them, and we just hired you straight off the bat. I'm like, sure, I'll bring it in tomorrow. And no, but I mean, that's it. It's to me, it's strange that I'm not showing my portfolio, but at the same time, it's like, oh, okay, whatever, don't have time for this.
Right.
Just let's get things done. Let's get to work. But as far as Star Trek, basically, I was called into a shop to do some vacuum forming. I didn't have a vacuum former, so I got called into a shop to do some vacuum forming for a movie called I Come in Peace.
Well, Dolph Lundgren.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Right?
A classic film.
Is that Dolph Lundgren and Brian Benben who went on to be in Dream On? I think so.
I believe so, because it does end with I come in peace, you leave in pieces.
Yes.
Okay.
That's okay. Go ahead. Sorry. But I think Brian Benben played the...
I'm just amazed you worked on 3 Dolph Lundgren films. Go ahead.
So I come in to make because he has the piece that jets out that he sticks into people and does whatever he's draining.
Yeah.
Whatever that is.
It's been a long time.
In fact, I still have the prototype one of that piece up in a box somewhere upstairs. Because it was a hexagon acrylic rod that was made into the spear piece. So I'm vacuum forming parts, and because they're redesigning this arm piece 50 times. I'm like, sure, I'll keep making as many as you want. And every time I would make one, they'd want 4 or 5 sets of the parts. And then the director and art director would come in and change the whole thing again. So I'm like, that's fine. I get paid for every single piece. That's fine. I'll keep going. And then the shop foreman at that time was Paul Pearson, and he goes, "Oh, hey, can you come in and work on some of this other stuff?" And I went, "Sure. How long do you need me to come in?" He goes, "Oh, just a couple of days." I come in a couple of days, and at that point, we have Star Trek Next Generation in and Gremlins at the same time.
Oh.
So we're going, so one day I'm over working on one little piece over here, next then it comes to it's been a week and they haven't asked me to stop coming in. And I go, "So what's going on? Am I staying or am I going?" And they go, "Oh, well, they'd like to hire you on." Okay, fine, hire me on, whatever. Worked out whatever, all the money that wasn't enough, and started. One of my first jobs on Star Trek was making the comm badges.
Yeah.
150 of them.
Wow.
And then it was phasers, and then it was the Klingon disruptor, and this blah 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 blah. For Gremlins, we started making. What was it? We made
The smokeless ashtray.
No, the big aluminum book that he's carrying around with the little thing that flips up.
Oh yeah.
We made that. A bunch of miscellaneous stuff. We made. I can't remember all the other stuff though. It's we were making frying pans you can hit people with. Stuff that didn't even end up in the cut.
Right.
Yeah.
We ended up making. What else did we end up making? For Gremlins 2, we ended up making. We had to make pudding cups and drills that the puppets could hold. We're taking Makitas and ripping everything out of them and putting in a different motor and stuff.
Right.
So you had to make, but you had to make pudding cups that they had to hold.
Yeah, so they wouldn't drip out and rot. Because some scenes with puppets take a while.
Yeah.
So we made those. We made Twinkies. We had to actually make Twinkies out of foam.
Yeah.
And that we had to be able to cut, if they had wanted to cut them open or rip them open, it had the cream filling in the center.
Was that a difficult task? I have to ask.
It wasn't that easy.
Really?
It wasn't that easy because the cream filling had to be a solid. It couldn't be a cream filling.
Yeah.
Huh. Okay.
So you put them together and have them take a bite, and they'd still have half the Twinkie in their hand.
Okay, I gotcha.
So rigging some stuff like that is kind of difficult. Then we molded we had the first prototype Gremlin bat from the second movie.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And everybody was having fun. So here we are with the sculpture, and we're supposed to be molding it. And I go, it doesn't have any genitalia. We literally went in and sculpted little genitalia onto it before we molded it.
So you gave it fruit and berry? I mean...
Yeah. And then we made like 15 castings of it. Because these were supposed to be hanging up in the cages in the lab.
Right.
Yeah.
And for some reason, they were sculpted with the arms out instead of like where they're hanging, but they were hanging upside down with the wings out, which makes no sense. And when they came to pick those up, the art director commented on how large endowed these animals were.
So not only did you sculpt a dick, you gave them a huge dick.
No, not really. Remember, it's a bat. It's only this big.
Yes, but
Proportionally.
so you made John Holmes gremlin dicks.
And then they insisted that we take them all off. It was like, come on. We're even going to see it. So we had to literally hack them off.
It would have made the attack on Dick Miller a whole lot more interesting, I think.
That's true. These gremlin dicks are attacking Dick Miller.
So we ended up taking all those off, unfortunately.
Oh, what could have been.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Could have been epic.
I'm sorry. I was just thinking of I've never uttered the sentence at my work. Well, today I took all these dicks off of gremlins that I thought was necessary when we were building the gremlin.
Well,
You lived a charmed life.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Setting your fingers to the bone with a Dremel, that's always good.
Oh.
That sounds horrible. Do you want to talk about some of the restoration stuff, or do you want to talk about some more movies? What would you? So you're doing some restoration for Disney, correct?
I was, yes.
Okay.
I actually do right now. All of the stuff we do for Disney is for walk around costumes.
Okay.
So we do like the arm gauntlets for Black Widow for the walk around people
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
who are in costume. We do Vanellope's hair candies and stuff for the walk around costume, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that for is that for Disneyland and Disney World, or just
Disney everything.
Disney everything?
I was
Okay.
going to say, because I know Disney Cruise has a lot of those characters now
Yeah.
for the
We
cruise
do it
line.
there's a hub in Florida
Uh-huh.
where everything goes to and then it gets distributed. It's for Euro Disney, Disney Hong Kong, Disney Shanghai.
Shanghai, yeah.
Japan, Florida, and all the cruise lines and the costume characters at all those locations.
Uh-huh.
You know, like they have the character breakfasts and stuff like that.
Right.
So a whole big variety of different kind of stuff. And as far as that's concerned, the restoration stuff was for the Disney archives.
Okay.
I was going to say, I would imagine they're very, very protective. So how do you get in, so to speak, to get to do restoration work for the archives? I've heard some other people talk about it, and I've read an interview with somebody that had to repair the old Mickey Mouse guitar from the old Mickey Mouse show. And they talked about how it was, you know, under lock and key and that sort of setup.
Yes, it is. In fact, when you have stuff like that, you have to have it secured. But it really depends on what it is, because in some cases, some pieces there may be 10 or 15 of them, and you're restoring one or two of them. In other cases, some of the stuff we did a few years back was we were given original maquette molds from Disney archives that were on their last leg.
Okay.
And they wanted to make sure that they had copies out of those molds, because, you know, depending the original little maquettes, study models that they would use back in the 50s and 60s and so on and 70s were in some cases cast out of plaster.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
And those would have a tendency to break or, you know, get knocked and so on. So most of the newer ones are either fiberglass or a urethane cast material. So we took those particular molds that they still had in existence, and some of those were from the 70s, which means that they weren't in great condition, and we would have to do whatever we could to get copies out of those molds.
I saw one of the ones that you all did was the old school Elliot from Pete's Dragon. I saw that one online.
Uh-huh. Yeah, that's one of those pieces my wife was demanding that she was going to be the one who did all the cleanup on that. And I said, have fun.
Yeah.
Because if she sees this interview, she'll smack me. But for certain things, Disney, she will get very anally retentive about finishing. Now, and see, here's another fun fact for you. My wife, her father was Chief Red Stick in Daniel Boone.
Oh, really?
Oh, really?
And Johnny Crawford, the rifleman's son and Mouseketeer, is her uncle.
Oh, really?
Wow.
That's not how we got in, though. No, my first working with Disney for walk-around costumes and stuff was back when Star Tours opened at Disneyland.
Yeah.
I was part of the crew that made the C-3PO costume walk-around suits.
Okay.
And one of the ladies, no longer with Disney, remembered me, looked me up, found out where I was, and said, hey, can you do some stuff? And we started redoing stuff, or started doing stuff for them on a regular basis for Jack Sparrow walk-around costumes.
Mm-hmm.
Because we actually had already worked on some of the stuff for the film and so on.
Right.
But not in that area. We were on the other side. So getting into Disney for me was somebody had remembered me from a previous shop.
Yeah.
And so on. So that was my key to the door. So it's in many cases it is who you know or who remembers you. You know, were you an ass?
Right. Well, we often ask when we have people on, you know, for our fans who are interested in doing whatever it is the speciality of that guest is like, well, how do you get into the business if this? So how would you get in the business if you wanted to be in props? And usually the story is, well, I knew a guy or I knew a gal and they knew somebody and then they asked me and then that led to someone else. And it's very rare that we don't get that story. Right?
Well, Well, for me, like I said, going into Star Trek, I was on another job, and they decided they wanted to keep me on, and I moved on from there. In many cases, it is who do you know, who have you bugged the crap out of,
Uh-huh.
to try and find out, who do you call to find this out? Who do you call to find that out? Um, for me, I didn't search out people.
Mm-hmm.
I was one of those guys who was always helping everybody out. Like, oh, yeah, I can do that. Here, let me help you with that. This is how I would do that if I were you. And once again, having done so many different things, I'm one of those guys who wants to know how something works.
Mm-hmm.
So in some cases, okay, I'm not going to say I'm not a geek or a nerd or any of those, because if you aren't, then there's a problem.
Yeah.
Because you're a geek or a nerd of something.
I was gonna say, you just saw me geek out over a munchie head.
Well, I freaked out over it too because I thought it was gone.
Oh, that is amazing.
And I found it in a box, and this is one of the ones that we had on our line to finish off for munchies. And I was like, oh, how the hell was I able to keep that? And it was just in a box. The show was over with, and I was like, I'm going to keep that. Because we were throwing things away, and I'm like, I'm going to keep one of those.
Yeah.
And every time you hear some things about people throwing things like that away in movies, my heart breaks.
But that's the story we hear the most.
Yeah.
Yeah, we hear it all the time. Well, storage costs X amount of money. We were already working on a low-budget film that would later go on to be this thing 30 years later that we had no idea was going to be anything, because you're just looking for the next job, right?
Well, Reanimator's one of those. Reanimator went from like, oh yeah, another one of those films, to now it's a cult classic, and I mean, I still have my crew gift from Reanimator, which is like a doctor smock with Reanimator just silk screened on it.
That's cool.
But it's like for munchies, okay. Myself and Max Cervantes at Bob Short's, we did all the mechanicals for all the functional munchies.
Yeah.
We were also the puppeteers for the munchies, along with a bunch of other people. And in the show, you see a little tiny munchie hand come out and grab something and pick it up. That was actually a full-on mechanical hand that was only this big.
Wow.
And I built that. But, there's, once again, so many different things. Well, how do you do this? I don't know. Let's try.
Right.
And see, a lot of people nowadays, as far as looking for a job in the film industry,
Yeah.
a lot of people they're looking for their niche. For me personally, if I was going to hire someone, I don't want someone who only does one thing.
Right.
I want somebody that I can go to and go, hey, go make. Here's the drawing. Go make this.
Yeah.
Now, whether that's sculpting or whether that's molding, casting, I want to hand that piece to them and have them make the master, make a mold, if that's what it takes, make the piece, make a mold, make castings, and finish them. I want somebody who can do everything. I want a jack of all trades within reason.
Right.
Now, if you have all these other marginal skills, I'm even happier. Because there are so many people who go to school for special effects.
Yeah.
And they can do, some of them think they can sculpt and some of them can sculpt. And they learned how to do molds of their stuff and even possibly run the foam. but some of those people can't apply the makeup.
Wow.
Some of the best makeup artists are going to sculpt it, mold it, cast it, and apply it because you've designed it as the person who's applying the makeup. You've designed it so you know how it's supposed to go down, how it's supposed to be glued down. You know, because in other words, you're a sculptor and a lab tech. That's all you are.
Right.
So I would prefer somebody who has a variety of abilities because it'll help. It helps me out. Go, okay, so who knows how to whip stitch fur? You know,
Right.
in case for making something.
Right.
And you never know what you're gonna make when you're even when you're on a show that's like Star Trek. Oh, well, you have to make gack. Gack is worms.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Well, you can't feed actors worms.
Right.
So you have to make worms that they can eat.
That
You
makes
have to
sense.
think about all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
They're best
Oh,
served live.
Yeah. And then the worms that have to move, right? Before yeah.
Well, they have one plate with worms moving,
Uh-huh.
and then they cut
Oh,
for
okay.
them picking them up. And okay, so on DS9, we had a styrofoam bucket, or a ice chest
Yeah.
that was half full of dirt and so on, and an entire colony of night crawlers and earthworms.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so they could be taken out, used, put back in. Okay, and then clean out the bowl, and then take and put in the 10 pounds of gelatin worms that were made.
Yeah.
That were vanilla flavored.
At least you took that into consideration.
Well, yes, because I always know what's going to happen. See, when we were making those for the first time, the prop master, which was Joe Longo on DS9, he said, because I basically brought him a clear plastic bag full of gelatin worms.
Mm.
I said, okay, here's your worms. And he goes, let me see you eat one. I'm like, I've been eating those all weekend. Eat one. I go, okay. And I ate it. And now when I say gelatin, I'm talking about like Jello gelatin, not gummy bear.
Right.
Because there's no way.
Yeah.
These are overcooked. So then he goes, okay. I said, now you try one. He's like, I don't want to eat those. Because we basically had taken earthworms and molded real earthworms. Not sculpted ones. We took real earthworms, molded them, and then filled the molds up.
How does one even do that?
You don't want to know.
I actually was sitting here thinking I probably don't want to know what's... Poor earthworm Jim.
So basically, he finally took one and he said, you made them vanilla? I go, well, I don't know what other flavor I would have made them. I mean, because they were brown, translucent. Parts of them were translucent brown, and the rest brown.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like you gotta at least have a good taste to it because you're picking up
Yeah.
Put them all together, make a giant tapeworm or something out of it. But so those went on set, and once again, the actors were reluctant to eat them, and until he picked one up and went, ow. It's a vanilla flavored. And then they took one piece off camera and tasted them. They go, okay, we can do this.
I don't blame them.
Now on Voyager, they didn't use worms. They used these like a bamboo shoot thing, which are edible. I don't remember what they were because that was Alan Sims on that show. But they still wanted them to be able to be moving, so we actually had to make radio-controlled bowls that had these little arms that would move to make things undulate, and they can move so they look like they were alive.
Huh.
So that's, once again, a different take on the same thing.
So you just had to keep reinventing the wheel for the same show.
Well, it's a different show.
Well, different show. I'm sorry.
Voyager's out in the Delta Quadrant.
Yes.
You're talking to nerds. We understand, but
But I mean, it's a show that it basically already had its basis made.
so this is established what it looked like, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then see, and I worked with the prop department. We worked a little bit with set dressing here and there, and we also worked with Bob Blackman, who was the wardrobe designer. So we would do wardrobe pieces as well as props and so on. So we would do armor. We did the Breen helmet and armor. We did. Who else did we do? We did some of the costume pieces for the rock episode, the wrestling rock episode of Voyager. We did all the light up panels that were all over the costume, including the shoes. Enterprise, we were doing the Orion slavers. They had like bolts sticking out of their neck and shoes that were normal men could not wear. They were like size 28. That's a big shoe.
Yeah.
That's a big shoe. A really big shoe.
Star Trek was definitely, has definitely been a very big part of my life.
Right.
But other ones, once again, me remembering everything I've worked on. When I wrote all my list down originally for my original portfolio about 10 years ago, it's like it's not even half of what it is.
Yeah.
Worked on Tales of the Crypt.
Mm-hmm.
The first one we did the
show or the movie?
The movie.
The movie Demon Knight, right?
No, the actual movie.
Oh, the Tales. Oh, I'm sorry.
The Hammer.
It was Demon Knight, the movie Demon Knight.
Right.
We did the key to with blood's Christ's blood in it.
See.
Oh.
Told you to.
And the briefcase.
Yeah.
That it was in. We did that.
See, when you said Tales from the Crypt, I automatically thought, because you did the original Hammer Tales from the Crypt as well. That was like one of your first ones on at least on your IMDb page. It was.
Probably. Once again, there's a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I know.
See, for me, when I do talks like this, like at a convention or something, it's like, okay, what do you guys want to know? Ask a question so it'll trigger something in the back. In the Rolodex.
Yeah, when we're talking to us, we just like to hear about your career. I mean, nothing specific, but because your span isn't. I mean, you've worked in Batman Forever, Rocky IV. I mean, it goes on and on.
Total Recall, the original.
I forgot about Total Recall. Yeah, I mean.
Right.
One question
that's with wolves. Huh?
One question I actually wanted to ask too was, and you mentioned before I think we started filming, you've got the sculpt for the Art Asylum Star Trek tricorder behind you, but you also are involved in helping design toys, correct? Because you did some of the Star Wars science toys, and I have to mention that because my son's obsessed with them.
Yeah, that was for Uncle Milton Toys. Yeah, we did. We helped do the mine.
Yeah, the thing that you use the force, you lift it up. My son's obsessed with it, so I had to bring it up because when I saw you were involved in that.
Yeah, we also did the frog habitat for Yoda's hut.
Yeah.
Explorer sets. A lot of different stuff. But also we did stuff for Mattel, for Hot Wheels, for Big Jim, for what else? A bunch of different stuff. I mean, it's just
When you're working on the toys, how is it different than working on something that's going to be used on screen?
well, in some cases it's even more rushed.
Really?
Really?
We were the Fix-It team. So after the way it normally works with any toy when you're working with China is you design, and it varies a little bit. You design the toy, and in some cases, no matter what company it is, whether it's Hasbro, Mattel, so on and so on, in some cases you do a prototype that's a functionality prototype. It's basically to show the actions of what you're supposed to be doing, what it's supposed to function like. Mm-hmm. And the rest of the design is all drawn out and everything else. And then China makes a prototype of a final piece. Well, then that comes back from China for approval, and 9 times out of 10, the communication was bad.
Right.
And so you get something that is slightly like what you were thinking about, but not quite.
Right.
So we would be called in on Thursday or Friday, and usually it was Friday at about 3:00 in the afternoon.
Yeah.
Of course.
Just when rush hour is going to hit, so it's going to take us 2.5 hours to get back across the freeway. For a 45-minute trip, it should take. And we're given the project to make it look like it's supposed to, according to the drawings, and make it work like it's supposed to, according to the drawings.
Yeah.
By Monday morning. So in some cases, it's an entire 90% of the time is an entire rebuild.
I'm hoping you're getting paid extra for that.
In some cases, yes, and in some cases, no.
No.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
And then there's always changes on Monday. Oh, we'll take it back and change this to that.
Yeah.
We change the design over the weekend. But it happens all the time. So you kind of get used to it. You hit the ground running. On Star Trek, we only had a maximum of 6 days to make anything.
Yeah.
Wow.
Because of the quick
no matter how
turnaround.
many we had to make either.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Were you a Trekkie before you started working on Star Trek? I was just kind of curious.
I liked the original series.
Yeah.
And I knew who Spock was and everybody else, so I did like it, yes. And just to give you background too, I've been going to Star Trek and science fiction conventions since I was in high school.
Right.
I graduated in 81.
Uh-huh.
So I've been going to these events for a while.
Right.
And some of them, a lot of them I used to go to just as an attendee. Other ones later on as I was working, especially after starting to work on Star Trek and some of those, mm-hmm. I would be asked to be a guest.
Yeah.
And most of those were here in the Los Angeles area. So I was like, sure, just give me a free ticket to get in. I'll come down. I don't care.
Right.
You guys know what Dragon Con is?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. In Atlanta.
Yeah. Okay. Well, here's a very disappointing story for you. So during Voyager, I'm asked. I get a phone call from somebody at Dragon Con, and they go, "We'd like you to be a guest at Dragon Con." I'm like, "Great, okay, sure, I can do that." So we start talking about different things. You know, I could be on a panel with Mike Akuta, John Eves, and Rick Sternbach, you know, the designers and so on. And I can talk about my end of it after we get the drawings from them. And so we set it up that, okay, so it's this date, blah 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 blah. And I go, okay, so who do I talk to about arranging the flight and the hotel room? And this is where it goes downhill. I said, okay, so what happens? Okay, well, I can give you the name of our person who takes care of arranging flights and so on like that. And I'm sure she can get you a good rate on your flight and a good rate on your room. Now, if I'm a guest,
Yeah.
why am I paying for a room, and why am I paying for it? You know.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, they go, oh, and for every day that you do a panel, you'll get a ticket to go to the convention for the day. And I went, why? If I'm only doing one panel, why wouldn't I get a ticket for the entire convention?
Yeah.
And what came out of their mouth was that you're not important enough to for us to pay for all that. You're not an actor and have, you know.
Well,
That's what.
that happens all the time. We moderate for conventions. I moderate for our local Comic-Con, a Scarefest, and several of them. And this is something we run into all the time. We're like, hey, why don't you get blah, blah, blah. Well, who knows who that is, Joe or James or Chad? You know what I mean? And we're like, well, fans know who they are.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know. And so I was like, oh, so you want me to pay? They go, well, yeah. I go, why would I want to pay to come to your convention and then work?
Yeah.
And they're like, well, but you're not a famous actor, so we wouldn't pay for that. I said, well, then why are you asking me?
Right.
Yeah. That's just.
If I lived in Georgia or someplace close, that would be different.
Yeah.
That's disappointing. That's why we like doing this podcast that we do, and we kind of stumbled into it. But that's one of our main focuses. Is we like to talk to the people like you, like production designers, like special effects coordinators who work behind the movies, because you all have the best stories, and you're the reason why these movies look and are the way that they are.
The way I always say it is, you all are the ones that legitimately build, literally, the world.
Yeah.
I mean, the world that because I grew up watching Star Trek, every version of it ever. I've got a lot of toys, some of which I bought as an adult, but but it goes back to the fact that, you know, it's a world. It is complete. There is, you know, the worms and the sets and all of that stuff. It may be escapism, but it's not like, oh, okay, I'm completely taken out of it, because the world fits together.
Yeah.
And it's the production people that do that. It's not the actor that shows up on set, comes out of the trailer, reads a couple lines. I mean, obviously they're part of it.
You have to have them there.
Well, yeah.
You do. It's just something there's legitimately named directors that some of these cons will not pay for, much less some of the writers. For example, a couple of years ago, and we won't say the one, and they're really good to us, but they won't pay moderators either, if it makes you feel any better for these things, right?
They really want us there.
Yeah, they really want us there. I mean, it's amazing how much of fuss they'll kick up about an extra ticket.
Yeah.
Like if you want to bring your wife or something like that. Our local ones do a pretty good job with us, but I've been really shocked. There was one, well, this is about you, but anyway, sorry. I actually lost my train of thought. Yeah, they wanted to have more writers, and James was like, yeah, I'll contact this person, this person, this person. They didn't want to pay for them to come in.
They wouldn't pay for the hotel room.
These people would come in for free. They just needed transportation and a hotel room, which I didn't think was all that out of the way, you know?
but it's been pretty consistent. If you're not on camera, and even then, if you're not, they'll give guarantees to big name stars, but everybody else, it's like, well, we might let them come, but we're not gonna.
Right.
And it goes back to, I'm like, there's a reason this exists. There's a reason.
And my thing is, I usually don't charge an appearance fee like everybody else does. I go, you got to give me a room,
Yeah.
got to give me a flight, transportation wherever I need to go, and I need a per diem to eat.
Yeah.
Other than that, I'll do 5, things a day if that's what you want. I don't care.
Yeah.
Give me a table. I'll sit down and talk to people all day.
Well, yeah, because you're talking to fellow nerds and geeks. You already have something in common, right? These people are probably already like the same things you like.
Exactly. And that's the thing too is, I've done, I don't know how many conventions now, but I do In Conjunction up in Indianapolis.
Sorry, we have a cat over here who's going crazy, so the audience won't hear. We have to actually pick him up.
He escaped.
I have 2 cats and 2 dogs and 3 kids. So.
Yeah.
There we go.
Well, and that's the reason I had to get up earlier. I'm sorry, Mike, because my 7-month-old was screaming. We had the door locked to the basement, and somehow this little guy opened the door so that we could hear the baby screaming too.
Well, I understand.
Yeah. Anyway.
But I not only am a guest at conventions. In fact, we just did the Doctor Who convention this last weekend.
Oh wow.
Which is called Gallifrey. Now, I worked that convention as a guest liaison with the convention, with my friend's company, where we bring in the guests. We had the new first Doctor at this convention and stuff like that. Yeah, I live in the area. It's fine. I'll have fun with my friends, meet some new people.
Right.
And I don't mind doing that. But once again, I don't live in Georgia.
Yeah.
Hell, I don't even. I couldn't walk there on a good day. But I also do. I do a Star Trek convention in England. In April, I'm going to Germany for Destination Star Trek in Germany, and then in October I'm doing the Destination Star Trek in England.
Yeah.
And once again, airfare, hotel room, food, done, easy.
Yeah.
And I basically bring I bring props to those things. I do talks on the stages. I sit there and talk to everybody at our displays.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And and tell people how did we make that? Well, this is made out of that. Blah 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 blah.
Right.
Yeah. But off the subject of conventions.
Yeah. Sorry about that. We didn't mean to get.
No. I kind of brought it up anyway.
Well, no, but it's very true, and it's something that we obviously all 4 of us can relate on, that we have experience with.
Which is, like I said, one of the reasons we started this podcast. So.
Right.
But I think we've been talking now for about an hour and 15 minutes, hour and 20 minutes, and
No idea.
yeah, well, hour and 20 minutes. I called it right.
Yeah.
But we won't keep you much. We won't keep you much longer. We just wanted to again thank you for taking the time.
And maybe tell us what you have coming up.
Yeah.
I noticed you. What did you said? He had a meeting he couldn't do next weekend because he was going to be where?
I'm not saying that. No.
I can't say nothing?
We're not talking about that.
Oh. But I love you so much, and we both have beards.
Well, I had a white one down to here last week.
Oh, really?
Hot. Well, what do you have coming up that you can't tell us about that if people are interested? You want to pimp your website and a few other things?
Well, like I said, I do a lot of work with a lot of different companies. Like I'm working currently with EFX Collectibles.
Yeah.
Which has one of the licenses for Star Wars props. And They also have the Marvel license. They have, you name it, they've got it. We did a Star-Lord helmet that's supposed to be coming out, I believe, for Comic-Con San Diego. We're hoping to have one of the Ant-Man helmets out pretty soon.
That's cool.
I'm working on something every day, whether anybody likes it or not. I'm stopped today because we're for Destination Star Trek in Germany. We're working on some products for that, which one of them, which I can tell you about. This one is we're doing Odo's Bucket from DS9.
That is fantastic.
Which is going to be a limited edition for both the April and October conventions.
So, as your friends of Bonehead, it behooves me to mention that we would love one of those. I mean, just saying, just throwing that out there. If you could just remember us later on.
But your studio is online. You do have a website for it, correct?
Right.
Yes, I do. It's hms-studios.com is our website. It hasn't been updated in a while. I don't remember what we would update it with, except for a lot of the. We just recently finished one of the green Power Ranger helmets from the original Power Rangers.
Oh yeah.
The effects as well. We're trying to work on a lot of our own IPs, our own intellectual properties. Train, toys and sculptures and so on.
Yeah.
We do 3D printing, we do everything, vacuum forming, whatever comes through that door, we'll more than likely do it for someone.
7 days a week, 24/7, right?
Well, if you want to survive, yes.
Yeah.
And if there's anything particular show that you want to ask something about, I'm good. I got time if you need it.
Well, do you want to ask one last question? We can.
You can ask me almost anything.
Not
that one.
The things I want to ask you about other than that one are probably too risque for our audience. Our audience, not you and I.
We talked about it a little.
I don't have real piercings, so.
We talked about it a little bit before I think we actually started recording, but I do know we have some people who actually have this really sincere attachment to Return to Oz, and you all did restore TikTok.
Yep.
What was and you've talked about things under lock and key like that before. What was the restoration process like on that? Because I can't imagine he came to you in the best of shape.
Well, actually, the body of him and the head were actually in really good shape. It was his arms.
Huh.
His arms were in some cases broken and needed to have some repairs done. But the other thing was he was missing his badge.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So we had to recreate that for it, including the door that covered up the where that was. Because I don't know if you've seen the pictures of what that guy looks like when the actor's inside of that.
No, I haven't seen that.
He was a contortionist, and he's completely folded in half inside of this thing.
Oh.
Because he's inside of two acrylic spheres.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know how he could do it. Some of those scenes are pretty long.
Where did TikTok end up? I mean, is he just back in the Disney archives?
Yes. When they did, after the year that we finished him, they did D23.
Right.
Yes.
Okay, and D23 is of course the Disney convention. So he was on display with a bunch of costumes from the same show, as well as a bunch of other ones. It was pretty prevalent. Exactly, you could see everything. It was very shiny, hard to take pictures of him. but he's now back in the archives, just like most of all those maquettes that are in the pictures.
Yeah.
Those are all in either the main archives warehouse or at Disney Studios at the archive offices.
Wow.
Well, where is the
Yeah,
archives
is that-
located? Yeah.
Say again?
Where are the archives located? You hear all these stories, and I would imagine it looks like the Smithsonian because we're talking about
Well,
80,
okay.
90 years of filmmaking.
Well, when you're talking about the Star Trek, sorry, not Star Trek, that. When you're talking about Disney, they have an office archive, which is on the studio lot,
Yeah.
which also includes Walt Disney's original office, which is still there.
Yeah.
But in the archive offices, basically it's in the new one of the new Disney buildings there. But you go in, it's like a regular office. They've got display cases around, and then tons of manuscripts. And then you go into the back area, which you have to be escorted back, where they have some stuff that they're categorizing and so on right now.
Yeah.
But as far as the main archive go, there are multiple locations
Okay. It had to be. Yeah.
that are undisclosed to most people.
Yeah.
So it's Raiders of the Lost Ark. It's being studied by top men.
Man, top. Yeah. Like the last shot of Raiders of the Lost Ark with the. Yeah.
It's not quite like that, but it's pretty impressive.
I would imagine.
Let me talk about. There's one movie I kind of would be curious to hear that you worked on. So when I looked at your IMDb page, I mean, every movie stuck out like, okay, I could see what I was when my imagination just went crazy going, I wonder if he worked on this. I wonder if he worked on that part of the movie. There's one movie in your entire IMDb list that I couldn't even possibly fathom what you could have worked on. Pulp Fiction.
Pulp Fiction.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, I missed it. I didn't see Pulp Fiction.
Yeah, he worked on Pulp Fiction. And it just says...
They keep messing around with my page here as it is.
Oh.
Because the Beetlejuice, Munchies, and Total Recall, where it says Special Effects Credit 3, and then you have to click the little arrow to the side to see them. Makes no sense. But anyway. Okay, so Pulp Fiction. Rubber guns.
Yeah.
Okay.
God, that was a long time ago. Rubber knives, plastic knives, blood knives.
You were hoping that he built the GIMP suit, weren't you? You were hoping he was hoping you built the GIMP suit. You know what I'm talking about? Remember the suit?
I don't remember that at all.
The guy that you've seen Pulp Fiction. Have you seen Pulp Fiction?
Long time ago.
Right. Where the Bruce Willis and they're all being sexually assaulted, and the guy comes out in a leather outfit. The GIMP. Where's the GIMP? The GIMP's sleeping. Well, you better wake him up. Yeah.
Okay. Well, no, it didn't have anything to do with that.
So a lot of armaments.
Well, see, it's like certain films, okay, Dances with Wolves, right?
Yeah.
We did hundreds of dragoon pistols and hard plastic and rubber. We did hundreds of knives in both plastic and rubber. We did probably 300 or 400 rubber-tipped arrows, war clubs, lots of rocks in rubber.
Yeah.
What's one of the God, Waterworld? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Worked on Waterworld. That was amazing. In that we'll see what's funny with Waterworld is that everybody in town was running around trying to do things, get things done. And so were we, but a lot of people lost money on Waterworld.
Yes.
My company at that time was Proper Effects with Paul Pearson, and we ended up, after the show was over with, we had T-shirts made up saying Waterworld. We made money. We made thousands of arrows with different shark teeth on them.
Yeah.
We made little credit disc things. We made smoker sunglasses.
Yeah.
We made smoker guns, functional and non-functional. We made, there was a device that was kind of like a wind thing that had like steel ball bearings that would come out of it as a timer.
Yeah.
When he was going under the water to get that big fish or whatever. We made that. We made, made the net guns. We made skull bombs. All these different things. So in some cases, like, okay, here's a good example. Addams Family, first movie.
Yeah.
This was one I was hoping for.
Okay. We made rubber bits of this, rubber bits of that, swords and so on. But there's this one little, I guess it was a Persian knife that one of them takes out and puts up against somebody's throat. And I think it was, it might have been the old woman putting it up to Fester, going, blah, blah, blah,
Yeah.
saying,
Yeah.
you know, you're my son, blah, blah, blah. In the movie, I'm sitting in the theater with my wife, and I see them use the knife, and I go, oh, that's what that was for. And she goes, shut up! I'm talking in the film.
Yeah.
Well, it's not like you get a screenplay or anything, right? They just say they want you to do this.
It depends on the film. In some cases, we'll get a script. Like when we did Earth 2, the TV series Earth 2, we actually had a script so we could actually know the description of what that item was.
Yeah.
So it's back and forth all the way across, you know, or we get a page.
Right.
In some cases on Star Trek shows, we get a page. What does that prop need to do? But in many cases, here's a drawing. Go build that.
Right.
And then we're on the phone going, what color is it? Does it have any lights in it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it supposed to do anything? You know. So.
Well,
Well,
I think we've taken up enough of your time.
yeah, I think we've taken up, and you know, you've been wonderful.
This has been amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, for three nerds, I've been sitting here bouncing in my chair. I know you probably can't see me, but I am.
He also has a little STD thing that we haven't quite figured out yet. So don't take all the credit. If you don't mind, we're going to wrap up, and we'll hold. If you can hold on for 1 second, we'll say our goodbyes after we wrap up the show. Is that okay?
That's fine.
All right. So I've been Joe Lewis.
Chad.
James.
Thank you so much, Mike. It's been a pleasure having you on here. One more time, what's your website?
HMS-studios.com.
HMS-studios.com.
Love stuff to see there across the board.
All
Check
right.
it out.
It's been Mike Moore. Thank you so much. This has been Bonehead. Check you next week. So I'd kind of like to ask you that question and also maybe ask the worst show and the best show you worked on.
Okay, well, if you're looking at my 1 second.
Do-do-do. Ba-da-da-da.
1 second. Hello.
If you're listening to us in iTunes land,
Hopefully Haley will cut this out.
he just got a phone call. He is now back.
I'm back now.
Welcome back.
We're two peas in a pod. That's my ringtone as well.
No wonder.
I looked at my phone. I was like, "Oh God, Christy's calling." My wife.
No wonder you guys hit it off. Yeah.